First Contact and Cultural Shock. Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Prometheus had seen many strange things during her decade of deep space exploration, but nothing quite prepared her for the perfect geometric precision of the alien vessel that appeared before her ship. The massive craft resembled an enormous dodecahedron, each face adorned with intricate patterns that seemed to pulse with an inner light. "Well," she muttered, watching as her crew stared open-mouthed at their viewscreens, "that's certainly something you don't see every day." The alien ship had emerged from what their sensors identified as a controlled space-time distortion, a technology far beyond anything humans had achieved. Yet despite its advanced nature, there was something almost comically rigid about its movements, like a butler trying to navigate a skateboard park. First Officer James Rodriguez leaned forward at his station, squinting at the readings. "Captain, they're broadcasting some kind of universal greeting protocol. Very structured, almost like they're reading from an extremely formal script." "Open a channel," Chen ordered, straightening her uniform more out of habit than necessity. "Let's not keep our new friends waiting." The main screen flickered to life, revealing what appeared to be the bridge of the alien vessel. The beings they saw defied expectations, not the typical humanoid forms or grotesque monsters of science fiction, but rather what looked like collections of perfectly arranged geometric shapes that somehow formed bodies. Their leader appeared to be a particularly elaborate arrangement of translucent crystals that shifted and realigned with each movement. "Greetings, undefined species vessel," the crystalline being announced in perfectly synthesized English, clearly pulled from their analysis of Earth's broadcast signals. "We are the hegemony of synchronized worlds. I am primary coordinator, Cetal 9 Perfect Harmony. We have been observing your civilization's development and have deemed you worthy of initial contact protocols." Captain Chen couldn't help but smile at the formality. "Thank you for the warm welcome, Primary Coordinator. I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the Earth exploration vessel Prometheus. We're honored to make your acquaintance." There was a pause, and the crystalline being's patterns shifted in what might have been confusion. "Your vocal patterns indicate an emotional response classified as amusement. Please clarify the source of humor in this serious diplomatic exchange." Chen glanced at Rodriguez, who was trying very hard to maintain a straight face. "No humor intended, Primary Coordinator. Humans often smile during important moments. It's a sign of friendly intentions." "Illogical. Facial muscular contractions have no bearing on diplomatic success metrics." The alien's pattern swirled faster. "Please maintain neutral expression parameters during this historic interaction." That only made it harder for the human crew to keep from laughing. The sheer stuffiness of these advanced aliens was somehow both impressive and hilarious. Chen bit her lip, trying to maintain composure. "Of course, Primary Coordinator. We'll try to be more synchronized." The alien's patterns froze completely. Was that attempt at wordplay? "Our cultural database indicates humans often engage in jokes, the intentional manipulation of language and expectations to provoke emotional responses. This is highly irregular for first contact protocols." "I apologize if I've caused any offense," Chen said, though she couldn't quite keep the amusement from her voice. "Perhaps we should focus on establishing basic diplomatic relations." "Agreed. Please prepare to receive our standard diplomatic package, containing exactly 2,749 pages of preliminary protocols, regulations, and mandatory procedures for species integration into the hegemony." Rodriguez couldn't help himself. "Don't suppose you have the Cliff Notes version?" The alien's patterns turned a sharp, alarmed red. "Cliff Notes. You propose summarizing our perfectly optimized bureaucratic procedures. And you reference this concept using an antiquated Earth reference to abbreviated study materials. This is. The patterns began spinning wildly, and other geometric beings on their bridge started moving in agitated patterns. Chen shot Rodriguez a look, but she had to admit, watching these ultra-advanced aliens have what appeared to be a collective conniption fit over the suggestion of summarizing their paperwork was pretty entertaining. Primary coordinator, please. Chen tried to salvage the situation. We meant no disrespect. Humans sometimes use humor to ease tension in new situations. It's part of our diplomatic approach. Tension, easing. Through intentional protocol violations. This requires immediate analysis. Stand by for emergency consultation with the High Synchronicity Council. The screen went blank, leaving the human crew in stunned silence for about 3 seconds before the bridge erupted in poorly suppressed laughter. "Oh God," Rodriguez wheezed. "Did we just break first contact because I made a study guy joke?" Chen shook her head, grinning despite herself. "I have a feeling this is going to be either the shortest or the most interesting diplomatic relationship in human history. Lieutenant Park, please tell me you recorded all of that." "Every second, Captain," Park confirmed, wiping tears of laughter from her eyes. "Including the part where they turned red over cliff notes. Should I prepare a report for Earth Command?" "Oh yes," Chen replied, settling back in her chair as they waited for the aliens to return. "But maybe leave out the part where we nearly derailed humanity's first contact because we couldn't keep a straight face. That might not look great in the historical records." As they waited, Chen couldn't help but wonder what other bureaucratic adventures awaited them with these peculiar aliens. One thing was certain: this was going to be a very different kind of first contact story than anyone had expected. The Great Misunderstanding. The situation aboard the Prometheus went from amusing to alarming exactly 6 hours after their first contact with the hegemony. Captain Chen was reviewing first contact protocols in her ready room when Lieutenant Park's voice crackled over the intercom with barely contained panic. "Captain, to the bridge. The hegemony. There, you need to see this." Chen rushed to the bridge, coffee mug still in hand, and nearly dropped it when she saw the main view screen. Where there had been one geometric ship before, there were now hundreds, each one more perfectly symmetrical than the last, arranged in what appeared to be a mathematically perfect attack formation. "They just started appearing through those space-time distortions," Rodriguez reported, his earlier humor replaced by concern. "Each one precisely 47.3 seconds after the last. Very coordinated. Very threatening." The communication channel burst to life without warning. Primary coordinator, Cytal 9 Perfect Harmony's crystalline form, had taken on a deep crimson hue. "Attention human vessel. The High Synchronicity Council has completed their emergency session regarding your species' diplomatic aberration." Chen set down her coffee carefully. "I hope we can clear up any misunderstandings." "Mess il indier stand danges." The aliens' perfect geometric patterns actually flickered. "Our linguistic analysts have completed a thorough review of your Cliff Notes statement. We have determined it was an intentional suggestion that our perfect protocols are inefficient." Rodriguez muttered under his breath. "I mean, 2,749 pages of preliminary procedures is a bit much." Silence. The primary coordinator's form split into fractal patterns of agitation. "This deliberate attack on our organizational methodology cannot go unanswered. The Council has determined that humanity represents a dangerous chaotic element in the galaxy. Your casual dismissal of proper procedures and your persistent use of humor as a diplomatic weapon must be addressed." Chen raised her hands in a peaceful gesture. "Primary coordinator, I assure you we meant no offense. Perhaps we could schedule a meeting to discuss these concerns. Maybe over coffee." She immediately regretted the last part. Coffee. The aliens' patterns went completely haywire. "You propose discussing this grave situation while consuming psychoactive bean-derived stimulants. In an informal setting. Without proper documentation." The bridge crew watched in a mixture of horror and fascination as the primary coordinator appeared to undergo what could only be described as a geometric meltdown. Various shapes in its form began rotating in opposing directions. "The Council's judgment is final," the alien declared, its voice modulating between octaves. "Humanity must be brought into conformity with hegemony standards. We hereby declare the commencement of Mandatory reorganization procedures. The screen went dark, leaving the bridge in stunned silence. Did we just get declared war on because I complained about paperwork? Rodriguez asked incredulously. Not war, Lieutenant Park corrected, reading from her console. According to their transmission, we're being subjected to mandatory reorganization procedures. They're sending through a detailed schedule now. Oh my God. How bad is it? Chen asked, already dreading the answer. They've planned out the next 6 months in 5-minute increments. There's a color-coded spreadsheet for every ship in their fleet. They've included performance metrics, efficiency quotas, and is that a mandatory fund schedule? Chen stared at the geometric fleet arrayed against them, each ship pulsing with precise, synchronized patterns. They were facing an armada of the galaxy's most powerful bureaucrats, and they'd managed to offend every single one of them. Contact Earth Command, she ordered, then paused. And someone please tell me we have more ships nearby, preferably crewed by people with very, very good poker faces. Already done, Rodriguez reported. The HFY Galaxy and U.S. Chaplain are en route. Though I should mention that the Galaxy is commanded by Captain Martinez. Chen groaned. Martinez was infamous for her bad puns. Perfect. We're about to face off against the most organized aliens in the galaxy, and our reinforcement is commanded by someone who once tried to name her ship's AI system Hollywood. Look on the bright side, Park offered. At least they're giving us a detailed itinerary of our own subjugation. Very thoughtful of them. Not helping, Lieutenant. Chen watched as more hegemony ships continued to appear, each taking its mathematically perfect position in the formation. Send a message to Earth Command. Tell them we may have accidentally started an interstellar incident over office procedures. As she watched the alien armada grow, Chen couldn't help but wonder if perhaps this was exactly what humanity needed. A reminder that sometimes the greatest threats in the universe weren't superweapons or ancient evils, but rather perfectly organized beings who couldn't take a joke. Orders, Captain, Rodriguez asked. Chen straightened her uniform. First, nobody makes any more jokes. Not even accidental ones. Second, prepare for the most bureaucratically precise conflict in human history. And someone get me more coffee. I have a feeling we're going to need it. The hegemony ships began moving in perfect synchronization, their formations creating geometric patterns that would have been beautiful if they weren't so menacing. Humanity's first interstellar conflict was about to begin, and it had started with a joke about cliff notes. Somehow, Chen suspected this wasn't quite what the history books had in mind for first contact. Operation Punchline. The emergency meeting of Earth's Defense Council was unlike any in human history. The holographic displays showed the growing hegemony fleet, now numbering in the thousands, each ship positioned with mathematical precision. But it wasn't the alien armada that had caused the current chaos in the council chamber. It was Captain Martinez's proposal. Let me get this straight, Admiral Winston said, pinching the bridge of his nose. Your suggestion for dealing with an advanced alien civilization threatening to reorganize our entire species is to tell them more jokes. Captain Martinez of the HFY Galaxy stood her ground, her hologram flickering slightly as she gestured to her presentation. With all due respect, Admiral, we're not dealing with a typical military threat. The hegemony isn't angry because we insulted them. They're having an existential crisis because we introduced chaos into their perfectly ordered universe. And your solution is to introduce more chaos. The Admiral's voice dripped with skepticism. Exactly. Martinez's eyes lit up. Think about it. They're so rigid, so perfectly organized, that even the concept of a joke sends them into a geometric panic. We've been looking at this all wrong. It's not our weakness. It's our secret weapon. Captain Chen's hologram spoke up from her position near the hegemony fleet. She's not entirely wrong, Admiral. I've been observing their reactions. Every time we do something unpredictable or humorous, their entire command structure seems to glitch. It's like they literally can't compute it. Besides, Martins added with a grin, they've already declared war over a Cliff Notes joke. What's the worst that could happen? The Admiral's glare suggested he could think of several worst-case scenarios, but before he could voice them, the chamber's AI announced an incoming transmission from the hegemony. The main display switched to show primary coordinator, Cycle 9 perfect harmony, now flanked by an array of even more elaborate geometric beings. Representatives of Earth, the primary coordinator announced, its patterns shifting in perfectly synchronized waves. We have prepared the initial phase of your species' mandatory reorganization. Please observe our efficiency demonstration. The display split to show one of the hegemony's ships approaching an uninhabited planet in a nearby system. A beam of pure geometric energy shot from the vessel, and before their eyes, the entire planet's surface began to transform. Mountains rearranged themselves into perfect fractals. Oceans formed exact geometric patterns. Even the clouds organized themselves into symmetrical formations. Your chaotic world will be next, the primary coordinator declared. We will bring perfect order to. Sorry to interrupt, Martinez cut in, unable to help herself. But did you just turn that planet into a giant disco ball? The alien patterns froze mid-shift. This is a demonstration of our superior organizational capabilities. Not No, she's right, Chen added, catching on. It does look rather festive. Very sparkly. Perfect for a party, actually. The geometric beings began vibrating in what appeared to be collective distress. Parties are not authorized during mandatory reorganization procedures. This is a serious display of our... Oh, Martine snapped her fingers. That's what your ships remind me of. They're like those stress balls that change patterns when you squeeze them. Very relaxing. Do you guys need to relax? You seem tense. The primary coordinator's form actually began to glitch, its perfect geometry flickering between shapes. This is unauthorized TSICKOLOGCKL warfare. Emergency Protocol 7X925 must be initiated immediately. The transmission cut off abruptly, leaving the council chamber in silence for a moment before Martinez spoke again. See, they literally can't handle it. Now imagine an entire fleet of human ships, each one armed with nothing but dad jokes and pop culture references. Admiral Winston stared at the tactical display, watching as the hegemony fleet's perfect formation began to show slight irregularities. Some ships actually out of alignment by several meters. This is either the most brilliant or the most insane strategy I've ever heard. Why not both? Chen suggested. We're already at war over a study guide joke. We might as well embrace the absurdity. The Admiral sighed deeply, looking around the chamber at Earth's assembled military leadership. I cannot believe I'm about to say this, but initiate Operation Punchline. God help us all. Over the next 24 hours, Earth's defense forces underwent the strangest military preparation in history. Combat training was replaced with comedy workshops. Strategic planning sessions devolved into brainstorming sessions for puns. The U.S. Fibonacci's crew spent 3 hours practicing the art of dad jokes under Martinez's enthusiastic instruction. The hegemony's perfectly ordered universe was about to meet humanity's chaos in full force, and Earth's first line of defense would be its sense of humor. As Chen watched her crew prepare for what they'd begun calling the comedy offensive, she couldn't help but wonder if perhaps this was exactly why humans had developed humor in the first place, as a defense against an universe that sometimes took itself too seriously. Captain, Rodriguez reported, trying to keep a straight face, the hegemony fleet is approaching our position. They appear to be broadcasting an extremely detailed PowerPoint presentation about our upcoming reorganization. Chen settled into her command chair, allowing herself a small smile. Well then, let's show them our presentation. Lieutenant Park, initiate Operation Punchline. And someone please tell Captain Martinez she has permission to use the rubber chicken. The battle for humanity's future was about to begin. And for once, the best defense would be a good sense of humor. The laugh track offensive. The first shot in humanity's strangest war wasn't fired from a weapon. It came from Captain Martinez's personal collection of novelty items. As the Hegemony fleet approached Earth's defensive line, the U.S. Galaxy transmitted what appeared to be a formal response to their reorganization presentation. When the geometric aliens opened the file, they were greeted by a rubber chicken doing the Macarena. The effect was immediate and spectacular. Entire sections of the perfectly aligned Hegemony fleet wobbled out of formation. Several ships actually spun in place, their geometric patterns strobing in confusion. By the sacred TGOREMs, primary coordinator, Cycle 9 Perfect Harmony's transmission cut through the chaos, its crystalline form practically vibrating with distress. This is a direct violation of Presentation Protocol 7B12. Where are your properly formatted slides? Your bullet points? Your transition animations? Oh, we have transitions, Martins responded cheerfully. Lieutenant, show them our spreadsheet analysis. What followed was definitely not a spreadsheet. Instead, the Hegemony received a compilation of Earth's greatest comedy moments, everything from classic slapstick to modern memes, all set to "Never Gonna Give You Up." The result exceeded all expectations. The Hegemony's command ship actually hiccuped through space-time, briefly appearing upside down before righting itself. Across their fleet, the perfectly synchronized patterns began to show signs of what could only be described as geometric indigestion. Captain Chen Rodriguez called out from his station on the Prometheus. "You need to see this. Our sensors are picking up some kind of quantum resonance from the Hegemony ships. It's almost like..." "Like what?" Chen asked, watching as more alien vessels began to drift out of formation. "Like they're laughing. Not the ships, the actual crystalline beings inside. Their molecular structure is vibrating in patterns consistent with human laughter." The primary coordinator's next transmission confirmed their suspicions. Its usual perfectly modulated voice now contained unmistakable hints of suppressed giggles. "This is an unauthorized deployment of viral emotional responses. Our crews are experiencing dangerous levels of quantum resonance." "Did we just discover that laughter is literally contagious to their species?" Park asked incredulously. "Not just contagious," Rodriguez replied, studying his readings. "It's causing cascade reactions in their crystalline structures. The more they try to suppress it, the worse it gets. It's like trying not to laugh in church. The harder you try, the funnier everything becomes." Chen watched as the once perfect Hegemony fleet descended into geometric chaos. Ships were now moving in random patterns, some spinning lazily through space, others attempting to maintain formation, but listing to one side like drunken geometric butterflies. "This is absolutely unacceptable." The primary coordinator's transmission was now punctuated by barely suppressed chortles. "We are the Hegemony. We are perfect. We are. Did that rubber chicken just dab?" "Admiral," Chen reported back to Earth Command, "Operation Punchline is exceeding all expectations. The enemy fleet is, well, they're literally falling apart laughing." Emergency protocol. The primary coordinator's voice had risen several octaves. "All ships initiate geometric reorganization. Restore symmetry. Suppress all unauthorized jubilation. I said stop laughing. This is a serious military operation." But it was too late. The quantum resonance of laughter had spread throughout the Hegemony fleet like a geometric giggle virus. Ships were now arranging themselves into what looked suspiciously like a smiley face formation, though whether this was intentional or a side effect of their crew's uncontrollable mirth was unclear. "Captain Martinez," Chen called over the fleet channel. "I believe now would be the perfect time for Phase 2. "With pleasure, Captain," Martins replied, and transmitted their secret weapon. A compilation of every dad joke humanity had ever created, translated into perfect hegemony mathematical notation. The result was spectacular. The primary coordinator's form actually split into fractals, each one shaking with suppressed laughter. Why? Why did the geometrically perfect entity cross the mathematically precise pathway? To to the other side. Ha 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 ha. No, no, this is unauthorized. I cannot, must not. Bugle ha ha ha. Across the fleet, hegemony ships began broadcasting fragments of jokes in all frequencies, their crews apparently unable to help themselves. Some had begun attempting to calculate the perfect mathematical formula for comedic timing, only to dissolve into crystalline giggling fits when they realized the inherent paradox. "Admiral," Chen reported, unable to keep the smile from her voice, "I think it's safe to say that Operation Punchline has achieved its primary objective. The hegemony fleet is, well, they're literally ruffling. Several ships are actually rolling in space." The primary coordinator made one last attempt at dignity. "This is, wheeze. This is not over. We will return. We will bring order to your chaos. We will. Why did the quantum physicist cross the superposition? Because he was here, and there at the same time. Oh no, I made a joke. Emergency or ETR. Emergency or ETR. The hegemony fleet, still shaking with geometric laughter, began disappearing through their space-time distortions. Their formations, once perfect, now resembled nothing so much as a cosmic conga line making its way out of the solar system. As the last ships vanished, leaving behind only echoes of crystalline laughter, Chen turned to her crew. "Well, I suppose that's one way to win a war. Someone please tell Captain Martinez that her rubber chicken has officially been classified as a weapon of mass distraction." The bridge crew groaned at the pun, but Chen didn't mind. After all, they had just discovered humanity's greatest defense against an orderly universe, its ability to find humor in even the most serious situations, although she had a feeling this wouldn't be the last they'd see of the hegemony. After all, they still hadn't finished their PowerPoint presentation. The last laugh. 3 months after what historians would later call the Great Giggle Crisis, Captain Chen found herself back in the same sector where it had all begun. This time, however, she wasn't alone. The Prometheus was accompanied by a small fleet of Earth ships, all assembled for what promised to be the most unusual diplomatic summit in human history. "They're right on schedule," Rodriguez announced, checking his instruments. One hegemony ship, approaching through their standard space-time distortion. And it's, oh my. The ship that emerged was unlike any they'd seen before. While it still maintained the hegemony's signature geometric design, its surfaces now sparkled with constantly shifting patterns that seemed almost playful. More surprisingly, it was broadcasting what sounded suspiciously like walking on sunshine. "Well," Chen mused, "I guess some things really did change after our last encounter." The main screen activated to reveal primary coordinator, Cycle 9 Perfect Harmony, though the title seemed somewhat ironic now. The once rigidly geometric being had evolved into something far more fluid, its crystalline patterns flowing in gentle waves that somehow managed to suggest both order and chaos. "Greetings, human friends." The primary coordinator's voice contained something that would have been unthinkable 3 months ago. Warmth. "I trust we're all ready for the first official meeting of the Galactic Comedy Council." Chen couldn't help but smile. After the retreat of the hegemony fleet, they'd discovered something extraordinary. Exposure to human humor had triggered an unprecedented evolutionary response in the crystalline beings. Their rigid geometric structures had begun to adapt, developing what they called quantum flexibility matrices, but what humans simply called a sense of humor. "We're ready, primary coordinator," Chen replied. "Though I have to ask, are you still going by that title?" The crystalline being rippled in what they now recognize as laughter. "Actually, we've simplified things a bit. Just call me Bob." "Bob." Chen blinked. "Yes, We discovered your human custom of using simple, sometimes completely illogical names, and found it absolutely hilarious. Did you know we used to spend an average of 3.7 years selecting mathematically perfect designations for everything? What a waste of time. Bob is much better. The change in the hegemony had been more than superficial. Their entire civilization had undergone a transformation, integrating humor and spontaneity into their once rigid society. They'd discovered that a balance between order and chaos, structure and creativity, led to previously unimaginable advancements. I believe Captain Martinez has prepared a special presentation for today's summit, Chen said, trying to keep a straight face. Oh, wonderful. Bob's patterns shifted excitedly. Is it another one of those PowerPoint karaoke sessions? The High Council has become quite addicted to those. Last week, Supreme Geometric Overlord Steve had us all in fits with his improvised presentation on why space chickens don't wear pants. The summit that followed was unlike anything either species had imagined during their first contact. Humans and hegemony representatives shared jokes, stories, and what the crystalline beings called calculated improvisational narratives, but what everyone else just called making stuff up for fun. The highlight came when Bob presented the hegemony's new mission statement, a perfectly balanced equation that, when solved, turned out to be the setup for a knock-knock joke. The human delegates laughed for 10 minutes straight, while the hegemony representatives pulsed with pride at their successful integration of mathematics and humor. You know, Bob mused during a break in the proceedings, we spent 10,000 years pursuing perfect order, never realizing that the universe's true beauty lies in its inherent absurdity. It took a species that named one of their ships after a numerical sequence and another after a silent movie star to show us that. Speaking of absurdity, Chen replied, have you heard back from the other geometric empires you mentioned? The ones that make you look positively chaotic in comparison. Bob's patterns formed what they'd learned was the crystalline equivalent of a mischievous grin. Oh yes, we'd scheduled first contact for next month. Captain Martinez has already volunteered to lead the delegation. Something about teaching them the time warp. As Chen watched humans and geometric aliens sharing jokes and stories, she reflected on the strange path that had led them here. They'd gone from nearly starting an interstellar war over cliff notes to founding a galactic comedy council. Somehow, humanity's greatest contribution to the universe had turned out to be its ability to laugh at itself. Oh, by the way, Bob added, his patterns shifting to what they now recognize as barely contained amusement, we finally finished analyzing that rubber chicken that caused so much trouble. Our quantum mathematics department spent 3 weeks studying it before realizing the joke was that there was nothing to analyze. Half the department had to take personal days to recover from the existential humor. And the other half? Chen asked. They formed a Rubber Chicken Appreciation Society. They meet every Thursday to discuss the quantum implications of squeaky toys. Last week they presented a unified theory of practical jokes. It's actually quite brilliant, once you get past the chicken puns. As the summit continued, ships from both species floating in perfect-imperfect harmony, Chen couldn't help but think that perhaps this was what first contact was always meant to be, not a clash of civilizations, but a sharing of perspectives, a reminder that sometimes the best way to understand the universe was to learn to laugh at its absurdities. And somewhere in the vast reaches of space, a group of highly advanced geometric beings were meeting to discuss the aerodynamic properties of rubber chickens, and that, Chen decided, was perhaps humanity's greatest achievement yet.